Section86.com. We're changing the world of podcasting one show at a time.
86 Productions.
Take what you wanna take. Don't leave me here. Lasting leap years ever your fear of the one and only love.
Hello and welcome to Off the Mark, the best podcast providing the most in-depth insight and analysis into the world of professional wrestling. On today's show, we have Aaron, Roger, and Doug to join Andrew as we discuss this month's view from the turnbuckle. So, Aaron, what's the biggest news so far since last time we did a show?
Well, the biggest news is actually the Women's Rumble that was just announced. And we don't know how many participants it's going to be, but, you know, we are going to have those from SmackDown and those from Raw. Maybe get some special ones, maybe from NXT or the Women's Classic that we just had. But yeah, I think that's going to be probably one of the biggest things that's going to happen. That will be at the Royal Rumble. They have announced, so we're going to have 2 Royal Rumbles at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this. I think I called this a while back because with the Women's Revolution, it just seemed like it was something that they were going to eventually do anyways. Roger, what are your thoughts on it?
I think it's a mistake. And I say it for one reason, is that the Royal Rumble is special. And that was something that we looked forward to every year. It was something that advanced multiple storylines when done well. If you look at the Rumble last year, you had so many different storylines that were intertwined with that Rumble, where it was Ambrose and Ellsworth, and then Strowman comes out. You had Goldberg and Lesnar and Undertaker. You had Orton. You even had Bray Wyatt and New Day do a thing. The women's stories, for the most part, get dropped after 2 to 3 months. So there are no intertwining feuds. There are no intertwining stories. There's no long-term progression. We might see a horsewomen moment, and that'll be cool. But for the most part, there's how many good female roster women on the roster that have been developed well? We're under 10. And you're going to do at least a 20-woman Rumble. That's going to be, I guess, at the start of the show because the Rumble is the main event. To me, this was a bad choice. A women's Money in the Bank was fine. You could have done a women's Elimination Chamber. That would have been a good idea because you could still have 6 quality athletes. But this, I think this is a waste of time. And I think it'll be like the 40-man Rumble. They probably won't do this again. At least I hope not.
I think it's all right. I think it should be its own little event, whether it be a special on the network or something along those lines. I am kind of interested to see if they get any former divas to come back, like a Trish Stratus or somebody to just make a guest appearance like they do for the actual Rumble match, along with maybe some NXT people, the 4 Horsewomen. That's the biggest thing I think that can come out of this is a storyline that sets up maybe Ronda Rousey winning it all just to face off against Charlotte at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think it's going to be with this. You said something about a special. Maybe this should have been something that they did, just as a network special where they had, I don't know if they had a bunch of women's matches first and then just had it all like an all women's pay-per-view. You can almost test that first and then have the Royal Rumble, have their version of the Rumble or the Queen's Rumble. They'll probably call it something dumb like that. But yeah, I think that's actually a better idea to have it tested first. But anyway, so let's talk about Clash of the Champions. So AJ defeats Roger's favorite wrestler and his favorite wrestler's best match. So Roger, you have any thoughts on that?
Hallelujah. The witch is dead. This failed experiment of a push is over. And a couple things. I think we learned something. That there are certain people who belong in the main event, and there are certain people, despite the amount of booking and storylines you try to give them, have no business near the top of the card. And Jinder Mahal proved that he is one of those people. He had one good match. It was with AJ Styles, who could have a good match with any one of us, despite the fact that we've never wrestled in our life except for Doug. And nothing of value was accomplished with his title reign. No one got over. No good storylines come of this. There are no memorable feuds. There are no memorable promos. There were no good matches until AJ. And to be quite honest, AJ got more over from Brock Lesnar's Survivor Series match than he did beating Jinder. Despite the fact that Jinder was a champion, the loss to Brock meant more. This was a failed experiment. The quicker he gets out of the main event and never comes back, the better the show will be for it.
Do you think that he actually lost a bunch of muscle mass? Because he didn't look as ripped as he used to.
I think he's about to take a 2 to 3 month vacation.
You think so? Not a 30-minute or a 30-day vacation?
Well, I think 30 days for the suspension, and then they're going to have to actually figure out what to do with him when they move him over to Raw so he can take a bunch of Superman punches.
Now, that'd actually be interesting. Because then you're like, who do you root for? Or is this just, all right, everyone, 15 minutes, we'll see you back after the bathroom break. Or I'm going to go get some nachos.
You cheer for the referee.
Yeah, like, let's go. But Doug, what do you think? Do you think that was Ginger's best match? And do you think...
I just don't care. I really think that when we were watching that match, I got a great deja vu of when we went to WrestleMania watching the main event of Triple H versus Roman Reigns, where it's like, at least there I could enjoy the crowd, the chants that were going on. I really took in the experience of being at WrestleMania. It kind of sunk in that, hey, I just saw WrestleMania. Here, it was more or less, thank God you guys were here, or else I probably would have fell asleep. It was boring. And AJ, for the life of me, I love watching AJ wrestle. I just didn't care about this match one way or another. The only thing I cared about was when the 1, 2, 3 happened, and it still was AJ's title.
Was that the match I said something about Eurotrip?
Yeah, I think we were talking about Eurotrip during
and then
that
we
match.
kept talking about Eurotrip throughout that entire match, and that was the sad part
Right.
because you're like, all right, AJ is trying so hard, but we're talking about Eurotrip.
I agree with both of your guys' points. The only thing I want to say about this is I was very worried. I thought that the tag team match was going to go on last, and because there was going to be some sort of shenanigans. So when this was going on last, I was really worried that there was going to be something big that was going to happen. And to my surprise, the fact that it was not a weird finish, it was a normal finish. Normally in these situations would kind of annoy me, but I was very glad because AJ is still the champion. The one question that I have for the panel, and Andy, I'll ask you first, is do you think that AJ is going to go into Mania as the champion?
I would be surprised if he doesn't. I actually think that whoever AJ faces at WrestleMania will be a huge match. I just was trying to figure out, who do you put him with? Do you put Owens with him? Because I think we've seen Owens and AJ go at it, but at WrestleMania it might be a little bit different though. They might be able to pull out more stops, more things happening, and that's where I'm like, all right. So who on SmackDown could you have him face? Is there someone you could bring back to have him face? You can't have him face Hulk Hogan because realistically it'll be a crappy match, and that's probably when AJ will be like, I can't take it this to a 1-star. But that's an interesting question. I mean, Doug, who do you think the next challenger should be for AJ, and will he have it till WrestleMania?
I think that he will have it till WrestleMania, and I've already predicted, at least online and everything like that. I think it's going to be Nakamura that wins the Royal Rumble to face him at WrestleMania. And I just rewatched it. The Money in the Bank that I went to in St. Louis. The moment you had with AJ Styles and Nakamura when they moved that ladder to the side, the crowd reaction was phenomenal. I don't think anybody else expects or wishes more than to see Nakamura versus AJ Styles. And where do you do that match? You do that match at WrestleMania. How do you get that way? You have Nakamura win the Royal Rumble. So that way you can build up Nakamura as a legit contender. So yes, I do think that he'll be the champion at WrestleMania. Who he fights next? You know what? I wouldn't mind seeing Sami Zayn. Push him in there. Because we already seen AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens. Let's see Sami Zayn do something. And with Kevin Owens in his corner as kind of a payback for, all the things that Sami has done for KO that led up to their refound friendship.
I really like the idea of Sami Zayn, but I think the next contender has kind of been telegraphed, and I think it's Baron Corbin. And he lost the U.S. title, so it makes sense that he could move into a main event program. He did win Money in the Bank, though he lost it to Jinder in a very strange move. More importantly, he beat AJ for the U.S. title. He logically is the next contender because he can say, I beat you for this championship. I deserve a shot at this title. They can have him beat somebody, he could beat, I don't want to say Nakamura, but Randy Orton, for example. Let him beat him in the number one contenders match. Boom. He goes into the Rumble. As much as I'd love to see Nakamura win the Rumble, I don't think it's going to happen, but I think Nakamura will be the person that faces AJ at WrestleMania because I think that's going to be the match that is good, while Lesnar versus Reigns is the match that's going to be crapped on. So they're going to try to balance it. And I think Nakamura is because I don't see anyone else on SmackDown who gives you that big feel. I guess you could say AJ versus Randy Orton, but I don't think people want to see Orton in the main event again. And I don't really want to see Cena versus AJ like that. I know he's coming back potentially for 17, but I don't think we want to see that match a fourth time. Like AJ Nakamura is the match you should go with.
I wouldn't mind seeing Cena versus Orton though. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen that match. But do you think that now, Roger, you brought up you don't think Nakamura's gonna win the Royal Rumble? Do you think that's because Vince just doesn't get it? Is that why he's not gonna win the Royal Rumble?
I mean, there's a lot of things I disagree with Vince as far as his personal style for booking, but more or less, I think that if this is truly the coronation that we think it is, there's only one person who's going to win the Rumble. It has to be Roman. Like, he has to be built up strong enough to beat Lesnar. And the way you do that is winning the Rumble. The Elimination Chamber, if I'm correct, is still a SmackDown pay-per-view.
I think it's Raw this year.
So I guess he could win
Raw
the
this year.
Chamber. But, they want him probably standing tall at the end of the night. And, now they have the full 2-month build-up to say the man who's going to challenge Brock Lesnar for the championship is Roman Reigns. There's an outside chance, I suppose, that they pivot and say Braun Strowman wins the Rumble, or maybe John Cena comes. There's a few things they could do, but I think Roman Reigns is an 85% favorite to win the Rumble right now, if I were putting odds.
Wow. Now let's move on to the U.S. title picture. So, Aaron, who is the Atari Jaguar of SmackDown?
Well, the Atari Jaguar of SmackDown is Baron Corbin, and he is no longer your U.S. champion. Dolph Ziggler is. Although on SmackDown, he kind of insinuated that he did not want to be champion, that he was done, and he left the ring without the title. And that kind of is peculiar for that type of a. What is he trying to say? Because I actually like what they're doing with the U.S. title picture right now. Even though I'm not a fan of Corbin, I like the fact that there are 3 people who can legitimately go for it. And theoretically, you could insert some other people in there too. For example, Mojo Rawley, he was somebody that beat Zack Ryder in the pre-show. He could, theoretically step up, say, look, I should have a shot at the title too. These other 2 people had their chance. I want in now. There's a lot of things that you could do with the mid-card title, and I like that that's what WWE is doing with it. However, though, with the thing that happened with Dolph, that really throws a huge wrench into the U.S. title situation. I think that Dolph is going to still stay champion. I hope they don't vacate it. But if they do, who does it go to next? And I don't know. I'm not sure who, if they, do you put it back on Corbin? I don't think that'd be a good thing to do. Maybe have Bobby Roode take it, but I wouldn't have him take it unless he's going up against a really dastardly heel.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. So did he actually relinquish the title then?
It was very vague in his promo. So I don't know if he dropped the title completely at this point in time, while we're recording. We might not find out for another week or 2.
Well, that's true. I mean, I guess we won't find out till the day after Christmas. But yeah, it's very interesting. So, Doug, do you think that there's actually a rematch that's going to happen? Or do you think that they're going to have to do like a tournament to decide the new U.S. champion?
I'd like to see if he is relinquishing the title. I'd like to see a tournament. I'm always a big fan of tournaments because you can set up so many different storylines through a tournament. And future feuds and everything like that. So to see a tournament would be amazing. So that's not what WWE is going to do. I think Triple H will just come out and declare himself the new U.S. champion. Because that seems like a Triple H thing to do.
He hasn't held that title, I don't believe.
So he can be the oldest person to get the full circle, what are they called?
The Grand Slam champion.
The Grand Slam championship.
He actually hasn't passed Bret Hart in age yet, I don't think.
Yeah, but the first one to accomplish it, or the oldest person to accomplish it.
That's what I'm saying. Remember Bret Hart beat Miz a few years ago to win the U.S. title?
Oh, that's right. They did that really dumb angle.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, didn't he just win it and that was it?
Yeah,
then he forfeited it for some weird reason.
Yeah, jeez. Oh, well. But
I don't like what they're doing with the U.S. title in that regard. Championships are supposed to be important. Why do I, as a fan, care about the United States Championship if Dolph Ziggler, who is the current champion, currently doesn't care himself? That's poor booking. Like, that just, I understand if his argument is I have bigger fish to fry, and like if Corbin came out and said I'm done with the U.S. Championship, I'm going after the World Heavyweight Championship. Okay, fair point. You're moving on to a more important title. But Dolph has nothing more important to do. Why does he not want this title? I mean, now maybe they'll explain this over the next coming weeks and this will make some sense, but you put your career on the line to win the IC title last year. We're not like 10 years removed from that storyline. Why all of a sudden is the US title beneath you? Like, it strange. I find that strange.
Well, it's not so much that it's beneath him, it's that the fans are beneath him. And so even though he won the title, to him it was more, you don't deserve to watch me defend the title. And then he, laid it down in the ring and left. So it could be a situation where he's like, no, I'm the champion. I have 30 days to defend it. So I'm going to, take those full 30 days. It could be one of those situations, or it could be the situation where he's like, look, I'm done. We know his contract's expiring soon. Maybe this is WWE's way of, kind of like, hey, you've done great for us, so we'll give you a title, as a thank you.
One thing I did see that there might be speculation that they're actually releasing a new U.S. title, and that's why. Which still doesn't make sense why they would do that, but that's why some people were saying that, so then he would come out with a different title, saying he's going to make it his own, blah, 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 which they could do something like that. They could probably have the American flag inside of the WWE logo, which we'll see if they're going to do that.
Yeah, I saw that one. I really didn't like it.
Yeah, so let's talk about something. I don't think anyone really liked this match. That was Charlotte versus Natty. Yeah, it kind of happened, and Charlotte wins, Natty leaves, and there was a failed cash-in. Is that anything else you want to talk about than that, Aaron?
It's not really a failed cash-in, though.
Well, I'm sorry, not a failed cash-in, but she didn't go through with it.
Yeah, failed attempt. My question is, I wonder when they're actually going to finally do the cash-in. They've teased it. They've, they went away from it for a little while, which I like. I like when you don't expect it. They teased it here, which I think was a good thing. But when are they going to do the actual cash-in? They have to do it sometime soon, because with a Royal Rumble winner, especially if it's on SmackDown, the Royal Rumble winner then should get precedence over a Money in the Bank winner. And I know that they could theoretically do a situation like they did with Seth Rollins cashing in, but I really hope that they don't. I hope that they have a cash-in, or they have the winner be on Raw. But, there's a lot of different routes they could go to this. I really hope that Carmella cashes in right before WrestleMania, and then the focus of WrestleMania will be on her versus, whoever her challenger is.
I was kind of thinking that, especially knowing that they are doing the Women's Royal Rumble, who better to have your first Women's Royal Rumble winner be than Charlotte Flair? If she's the face of the women's wrestling right now and your respectable future of women's wrestling, why not have Carmella cash in so that Charlotte can be in the Rumble match? That's what I would do with it. But
so you're saying that she would do it before the Rumble, and
that's why I was kind of surprised that they didn't let her cash in at the pay-per-view last night, because that would have also helped my thought process of it. You have her win the title, and then in the next week she invokes her rematch. Shenanigans happen. She loses. The only way she's going to get a rematch again now is if she wins the Royal Rumble.
They could do that. Didn't they do that with someone recently? With Kevin Owens or something like that? Like they couldn't go after the title until someone else had it? Didn't they just do that earlier this year?
Yeah, him and AJ. He could never go after AJ's championship. As long as Styles was the champion, Owens would never get another shot.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, I don't know if you could do that, but there's crazier things that happen that they do. Maybe she'll cash in next week. We don't know.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm a little bit in a different corner than Aaron, in the sense of I've always felt Money in the Bank should be treated as a championship. So to me, I think storylines should be done around that. Becky Lynch should have been chasing Carmella and should have been constantly trying to win that briefcase. There should have been a match, in my opinion, at SummerSlam for the briefcase, or, at Survivor Series, they should have been feeding over it, and then she should have interjected herself, because at this point, Money in the Bank has been done so many times that this idea of a surprise cash-in, there's only a few scenarios that I can think of that are going to surprise somebody, which is cashing in during a ladder match and cashing in during a chamber match. Everything else has been done. Cashing in, I guess, during a Rumble defense could also happen too. So is Carmella going to lose the Money in the Bank cash-in? Is she going to cash in at Mania, like how she mentioned Seth Rollins, and we're going to repeat that storyline? I'm not huge on Carmella, so I don't think she should be in that A+ tier the way Charlotte, Sasha, Bailey, and Becky and Asuka, in my opinion, should be. So to me, I don't think it expires at WrestleMania. I think it expires at Money in the Bank. So I would move her over to Raw. And I would move Carmella with the briefcase over to Raw after WrestleMania and let her cash in on the Raw Championship and shake up that division, because I don't think she should be beating Charlotte Flair. I don't think she should be involved with that division. I think she belongs a little bit more with Alexa and Nia and whoever they've got going on for that, even Asuka and things like that. But
wouldn't you want Asuka to win the first Royal Rumble for the ladies Royal Rumble?
I don't think she needs it. I think Asuka's undefeated streak is more than enough. I mean, to be honest, the winner should probably be Nia Jax. She is built as the big dominant one. She should probably be the one to win the Rumble if Charlotte Flair is going to be the champion. I guess you could have Bailey win it as the underdog, but they're always going to book an underdog as someone who loses more often than not. Nia Jax logically should have feuded with Alexa Bliss at some point in time, so this makes the most sense. And a Nia versus Alexa feud, that's a good way to get out of that, with Alexa not having to take a clean L, with Nia not having to take a clean L, is Carmella cashing in out of nowhere and stealing the championship. You got 3 months worth of television right there.
Well, yeah, because whoever wins that Rumble is going to face the champion. So who do you want? You have to figure out who's going to face that person at WrestleMania. You have to find out. You have to decide really fast. Is it going to be someone for Raw? Is it going to be someone for SmackDown? We need to decide that pretty fast. But oh well.
And let me just say, the idea of Ronda Rousey coming in as a rookie and winning the Royal Rumble is so absurd. Not because I don't think WWE would do it, because I think they most certainly will. But what a slap in the face to the rest of your roster to be like, you know what? We're going to make this historic Royal Rumble, and Ronda Rousey's going to come in and win it. Wow.
Remember, they had James Ellsworth win the first Money in the Bank.
Oh, no, I know. I totally believe that this is in the realm of possibility, the stupidity. I'm just saying, wow, talk about disrespectful. Thanks, ladies, for all the hard work you did in the Women's Revolution. Now let's bring an outside star. Not an other company wrestling star, an MMA star. Cool.
Very, very intelligent. So I think one of the bigger news actually that happened that came out of Clash of Champions, besides Baron Corbin losing, was Daniel Bryan was actually in the ring, which was very interesting. And we haven't seen him in the ring in a long time. And I'll start with you, Roger, because you guys got to see him not wrestle his last match, but you guys got to see him retire. Do you think that this is leading up to possible a feud with Shane that ends possibly at WrestleMania, or do you think that this was just a one shot because they couldn't figure out what to do and Daniel Bryan is threatening leaving? I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
I think all of those are true. I'm of the belief that WWE won't clear him. I think they made up their mind that they don't want him to wrestle. Whether it's legitimate or not, I don't know. None of us are doctors. None of us have access to the scans and all that stuff. But to me, if you truly believe that Daniel Bryan could have made a comeback, you would have let his unbelievable momentum continue. You could have put him on the IR. You could have made him a temporary GM while he healed. You didn't have to say he's not going to get in the ring. He's going to retire. So to me, WWE doesn't want him to wrestle again. I'm not sure that Bryan's okay with it. I think this is probably a way for him to exit the company. I think they're going to run this feud with him and Shane. I don't think it's going to lead to a match, but I think it's going to be, a WrestleMania match where if Shane's team wins, Bryan leaves SmackDown. And if Bryan's team wins, Shane leaves SmackDown. And then Daniel Bryan gets to leave. He waits out his no-compete clause. He shows up at a Ring of Honor, New Japan, wherever he wants to go, and he can resume his in-ring career. Because I don't think WWE wants him to wrestle again. I wish they did. I truly miss Daniel Bryan almost as much as I missed watching Shawn Michaels. That's how good he was in the ring to me. But I just don't think they're going to let him compete anymore. Knowing what we know about CTE, knowing what they said that he had with all the concussions, I think WWE, as far as they're concerned, they're like, you know what? We can't afford another Benoit situation. We're not letting you wrestle. End of story.
And I actually think that based on that, they actually want him to stay in the company. I think that he is going to wrestle. I think that this is going to lead to him versus Shane at WrestleMania. And Bryan has said he is going to wrestle at some point in time. So if it's in WWE or it's not in WWE, he will wrestle. And WWE doesn't want to have that negative publicity because Daniel Bryan is going to be associated with WWE. So if he leaves WWE and he goes and has like 10 more concussions and dies in the ring, or he kills, God forbid, kills his wife or something, like does a Benoit situation, that's going to reflect poorly on WWE. Even if he's in Ring of Honor, TNA, New Japan, doesn't matter. It'll reflect on WWE. If they can control how often he is wrestling, and let's just say he's only going to wrestle for 4 times a year. He's only going to wrestle at 4 big shows, and they're going to have a real storyline that builds up to it. If they can protect him like that, I think Daniel Bryan would stay at that point in time, because all he wants to do is wrestle. So if he can wrestle AJ Styles and Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens and all of them in a very controlled environment, I think they will go that route. So that's my hope. It's WWE, so they could completely screw us over. But that is my hope, that is what they're thinking in this situation, that they're looking at the bigger picture and they're not looking at it from the micro.
It'd be interesting to see. I mean, it was nice to see him at least in the ring. The tease of him possibly getting RKO'd, I think, was nice. But ultimately, I kind of agree with Roger on this one, where I don't think WWE is going to let him wrestle, and it is unfortunate because he was such a great talent. They don't want to let him go, but at the same time, they're not going to be responsible for anything that happens. And it is unfortunate because, you know, those kinds of things happen. Unfortunately, when I watched SmackDown tonight and you listen to Daniel Bryan talking to Shane McMahon, it almost seems like they're already buddy-buddy. It almost looks like they're dropping this whole thing as, nope, we've done this gimmick now and we're done with it. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the last that we see of it and nothing comes of it whatsoever.
I'd be disappointed by that. I think that they need to continue with this storyline that they're doing. Maybe they're waiting for some type of clearance so then Bryan can wrestle. And, you know, he has stated in the past before that he actually thinks he has a different way of wrestling, where it's not going to be stuff where he does a lot of like things with his head like he was with like the flying headbutt. I think that's of course gone, but I would like to see what his style is going to be. And I think, Aaron, I think you made a great point about that. It'd be WWE can limit when he wrestles if he stays with the company. So he may only be at the Big Four or a Big Five now. That would be, I think, really intriguing to me to see if that's what they end up doing with them. But let's thank our sponsor, HostGator. Are you a blogger or podcaster, or are you just not happy with your web host? You need to check out HostGator.com. You're going to find web hosting made easy and affordable. HostGator offers unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, one-click script install to their free ability, and has on the best control panel out there. Stop by today and try a free demo to see how easy it is. And if you use a special coupon code, Off the Mark, you're going to save 25% off your web hosting packages. So what you got to do is check out HostGator.com and take a bite out of your web hosting costs. And make sure you check out Section 86's Off the Mark page to click on the banner at the top to say big on items from wshop.com. So nothing really happened on Raw. Do we want to say anything about Dean Ambrose with his torn tricep? Or is that only
No.
Okay.
I hope he has
a little bit.
I hope he has a good recovery. I like Ambrose. He worked his butt off in 2016. So, but other than that, yeah.
Yeah, he did have to deal with Brock Lesnar in WrestleMania. Anyway, so we are doing the all-time draft. We've done a draft before of current wrestlers, but now we have an all-time list of draftees that we can choose from. So, Aaron, do you want to go over the rules?
Roger, I know that you kind of had some pretty good specifics if you want to dive into that.
Yeah, so, let's just get a little background. We did it last year where we kind of said, make your own roster of the current people, but this time we're going to say, how would you do it if you had an infinite, basically, amount of wrestlers to choose from throughout, all of history, build the best promotion, ever. The rules that we're going to go with are you're capped at 8 main eventers, and the reason for that is that, to be quite honest, if you're going throughout time, you could make an entire roster of nothing but main eventers, and there would be no point. It would just be us talking about, let's get the 40 best main event superstars we can possibly have and turn them into whatnot. So we're going to cap that at 8. And we're going to qualify main eventers as guys who really logically can't fit in the mid-card anymore. Stone Cold Steve Austin, for example, is not your Intercontinental Champion. It's just not going to happen. He is a top draw. He's a top guy. If you were to bring him in his prime or at any point in time, he's going to the main event. Chris Jericho, on the other hand, is a little bit more versatile, and maybe you see value in that. He can be a mid-card draw because he doesn't need to be in the main event all the time. Triple H, he's a main eventer, partially due to his wife and partially due to the fact that he's main evented too many WrestleManias. The other rule that we're going to go with is tag teams. Tag teams, we're going to say, can only be drafted in a scenario in which their tag team success eclipsed any of their single success. So, for example, we all love Matt Hardy. Broken, Woken, V1, Big Money Matt. Great guy. But ultimately, the Hardy Boys were more known as a success and probably what they will go into the Hall of Fame for, more so than Matt and Jeff Hardy. Whereas Edge and Christian, I love DNC. 5 seconds pose was fantastic. Edge was a main event guy. He main evented WrestleMania 24. That tag team is not eligible to be drafted. The reason we did this is that, to be quite honest, you could draft any tag team, and instead of Austin, you draft the Hollywood Blondes, or instead of Shawn Michaels, you draft the Rockers. So we just said, if they're a tag team, you have to draft them only if the tag team eclipses their single success. Dudley Boys, Harlem Heat, you get the gist of it. After the 8 slots, you can go whatever division you want to. If you want to go tag teams, cruiserweight, women's, lower carb, however you want to do it. We're going to do the snake draft, of course. Doug, if you want to announce the picks as far as the order, even if you want to tell the people what the final scores were. I don't know if you've tallied that up.
I have. We have the final picks. So in order of number of picks, Roger is first, Andy is second, Aaron is third, I am fourth. Give me 1 second and I'll actually bring up the final numbers.
And yeah, we'll be doing snake drafts. So of course, I'll have the first pick, and then it'll go Andy, Aaron, Doug, and back around, just like a fantasy draft that everyone has done.
There was 130 matches this year. Roger, you got 88 correct. Andy got 81. Aaron got 80, and I had 76.
Wasn't too far away.
No.
And
that's over 50% for everybody, so that's not bad at all.
Can I ask Aaron and Doug a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
How does it feel to live in a world in which Andy beat you? I just want, is this more of an indictment of you two or WWE? A little bit of both? How do we feel about this?
I think I changed my strategy a couple times during the year to stop thinking logically and start thinking, what would WWE do? And I think that's when I really started doing well. It was the middle three, or my 3 best months were Backlash, Extreme Rules, and Money in the Bank. Those were my 3 right in a row where I had the top picks for everybody. And
you're also Mr. Money in the Bank.
Right. So I think it was at that point where I started thinking, what would WWE do? Not with what my heart was, like the Royal Rumble. How would I book it? Where I got 2 out of 8 matches. So a little bit of that, and then all of a sudden it became one of those. I think I started overthinking what would WWE do, and they started doing a couple logical things, but overall still not bad.
Aaron?
One quick question about the draft itself, because I refuse to answer that question. So when we talk about the draft and we're doing an all-time draft, so when you draft, let's say Stone Cold, who most likely will go within the first or second round, you get him for the entirety of his career. Now, he was a main eventer realistically for about 4 years or so, right? So when you get him, do you get him for the 15 years he wrestled, or do you get him really for the 4 years he was the main eventer?
So my thought process is that because we are not constrained to the booking of the way they did it, you get him knowing how he could have peaked. And the same way that we would book Roman Reigns. I'm not required to book Roman Reigns as a face. I can book him as a monster heel. And I can say that is going to carry me for 5 to 10 years as, my top guy. The same thing we said with Austin. I know Austin worked. I don't have to wait for him to rise up. I can say, you're my guy for the next 10 years and use him to build. So I would say it's not about how long they were in the main event. It's how long they were active. So Goldberg, for example, was only active really 4 or 5 years, mega draw. But his career was about 96, 2000, and you get another year with WWE, but that's it. Whereas, someone let's say Ric Flair, I think he was active 20 years. So you get 20 years of a main event quality superstar wrestler. Andre the Giant, he was active for a long time. Hogan, things like that. And really what we're kind of factoring on is how do you think they would do in this era? So, for example, Bruno Sammartino, quite popular in the 1960s. I don't know how well he translates right now. Hogan, popular in the 80s, probably be popular now based on the fact that John Cena was popular. But is he as popular as Austin or The Rock? And that's kind of what we're going to talk about in the next one. But this is just the draft. So you get the full breadth of their active career. Also, unfortunately, injuries do have to come into play. So Daniel Bryan's career does end from the time that he started to when he had to retire. Same with Edge, same with guys like that. You get the full span, but the injuries do factor in. Same with Austin, anybody else.
Well, with that said, Roger, do you have your first pick in mind?
Oh, absolutely. When you're talking about all-time guys, you're talking about you want the best of the best. In my opinion, there are 3 elite draws. One of them probably is not a big fan of me or my people. So I'm just going to say I'm probably not drafting him. I'm just going to go on a limb here. And that gives me the 2 biggest guys in the Attitude Era. And I love both of them. They were fantastic. But one of them, the crowd never got tired of. One of them will always draw no matter where he goes. When he came out of WrestleMania 32, he got the loudest pop of the night. It wasn't Rock. My number 1 pick, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Andy.
Well, you know what, Roger, I figure I know who the other person you would pick, and I think I'm actually going to have to pick him up as well. So I'm going to take the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
It's funny. I had you pegged as drafting him. Like in my mock draft, I had you taking HBK.
I had you taking HBK in my mock.
And I was going to take The Rock, actually, then.
I do love Shawn, but I also acknowledge the fact that he was not a great draw. Like that is the truth. He's one of the greatest in-ring wrestlers. In my opinion, he's the best in the ring. But his time as champion was very questionable. Like just to be honest, he was just not that good of a draw. Austin, not a question. If I want to fill Dallas and get 150,000 if needed, Austin can do it.
Well, I'm going to go. For me, it's a toss-up between Hogan and Flair. And the reason I'm going to go with Ric Flair is because backstage politics with Hogan. Hogan is very versatile, just like Ric Flair. But Flair is the type of person who will lay on the mat for you if you ask him to. And so long as you don't do something stupid, he's going to be very loyal to you. And he's the type of guy that'll be with you through thick and thin. So for me, it'd be Ric Flair.
I was actually kind of hoping that Flair would fall down to me, but in my heart of hearts, I cannot pick anybody else. And this is why that's right. I cannot pick anybody else. He was the man for me. He is bigger than Hogan ever was, in my opinion. A better wrestler, better promo. The guy did everything you asked him. I mean, how many times did he have to lay down for Hogan? And he would do it, even though he just won the title the night before. But there is no better wrestler, in my opinion, than Macho Man Randy Savage.
Now, who are you pairing him with, though?
So I'm actually a little surprised that this person fell to me. But I don't think there's any bigger name in wrestling than The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. Just overall charisma, everything that he does, and in and out of the ring, the guy is an instant draw. So I would love to see Macho versus The Rock.
You know, I guess then I'm going to go with my second pick. So I'm going Hulk Hogan.
See, I cannot pair Macho with Hogan. As much as I love that match and that feud, my despise for Hogan for making Macho lie down so much. I hate him so much.
All right, Andy, you are up.
This is a toughie, but I think I'm going to have to go with Andre the Giant in this case.
That's quite the interesting 1-2 pairing you have going on there.
The smallest superstar, maybe? And the largest?
Yeah. So I'm going to say this. This did not go the way anticipated. I'm a little bit surprised at who's left, but this kind of makes my choice easier because you took who I wanted, Aaron. I was hoping he would fall back to me. Next pick, I'm going to go with, in my opinion, the single greatest character that Vince has ever created. This guy lasted from the 80s all the way until his recent retirement. Every single one of his matches lately became must-see television. The streak in itself was a story. And when you talk about whether it's the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era, the New Generation, there was one constant, and that was The Undertaker. And if I need a main event match, Stone Cold versus The Undertaker, that's a WrestleMania caliber match. Now, I need the best wrestler in the world. I already lost the best wrestler of all time in Shawn Michaels. I already lost probably the greatest promo man, arguably in Rocker Flair. But you know what I'm getting? I'm getting the current best wrestler in the world. I am getting the phenomenal AJ Styles.
Wow. I actually was expecting him to go maybe a few rounds later.
Yeah, so did I.
I mean, it's not a bad pick.
No, it's not. And there's nothing the matter with the pick, but it lets me get a Sting for my next pick.
And I am going to go and also take a very great wrestler, the excellence of execution. I'm going Bret Hart.
Damn! Darn it.
Gonna be a lot of that, folks. Get ready for that.
There will be a lot of that. And I apologize to Andy if any key phrases are said. Wow. So, knowing who I got first, and knowing that I think that there was no better match than his opponent ever, I'm going to take the Steamboat.
Ooh,
Steamboat.
that's a good pick. And his pair?
And to go with him, another, and I really did. I love the 80s. But I'm going with Dusty Rhodes. Another person that could put on a promo and just, I mean, everything that you get with Dusty too. All the matches that he came up with, created, all the stuff that he did for NXT, you can see. It was a great era for me in wrestling during that time.
So to kind of keep it versatile as well, I'm going to go with somebody who can have a good match with my first three people, and that's Roddy Piper.
You have a lot of people on this list that Hulk Hogan just screwed over. It's like Hulk versus the roster.
This is a toughie. But I'm going to have to take this guy a little bit earlier than I thought I'd have to, but I'm going to have to go with John Cena.
I like that pick. Anybody else surprised that he fell to the fourth round?
I am
A
actually.
little bit. Yep.
I probably should have taken him instead of Piper, to be honest.
I'm going to be honest. I had you pegged him, taking him there. I want to draw, and I got a mega draw, but I want somebody else who makes my television not must see, but I want someone who is can't miss television. I want Brock Lesnar, and I'm going to pair him with the guy who is the most over that I have ever seen in wrestling, who is not Stone Cold Steve Austin, a guy who changed the main event of WrestleMania 30 himself by simply the fans taking over. I will take Daniel Bryan.
All right, Andy.
That was my next pick. Crap. I was not ready for that. All right, so if I had to pick someone else to put with my guys, I have an idea for one, but I'm going to hate it if I actually pick him now. He should fall way later.
And that is?
This is a tough one. Well, I'm going to have to do it. I got to go with the killer. Chris Benoit.
Gonna... Wow.
Whoa. Wow. Did not see that coming. All right.
Nope.
Well, I'm actually going to go also more current era because I'm thinking about, entirety of somebody's career. And Daniel Bryan was somebody I had thought of as well. Thinking about versatility, I'm going to go with CM Punk.
I don't think anyone's going to have a bad thing to say about that pick.
No. No, that was one I was hoping for later, but I'm going to go with this. Not necessarily a big guy, but one people love and will absolutely be adored for years to come. I'm going to go with Eddie Guerrero.
That's fun.
That's a good pick.
Are you taking Chavo with him?
No.
Chavo.
But like with what Roger was saying, I need somebody that is going to be a good pairing, a good draw, and everything like that. So I will take Goldberg at this position too.
That's excellent value in my opinion.
I'm going to go a little off the reservation here. CM Punk I might have taken a little early. I'm going to go with somebody that he didn't care for too much, and I'm going to take Roman Reigns.
Now, is this pick based on what you believe he can do for you or what you believe he's done?
What he can do. So if we're very similar to, I know when you had drafted him in the current era, you had drafted him with the idea of he can be a mega heel. And he has that capability. He totally does. So in my thought process, CM Punk had a very long, run in the Indies. He had a short time on top. Really, realistically, it was about 2 years on top. Roman Reigns, on the other hand, WWE pushed him down our throats, and he's been on top, if you think about it, realistically, for the last 3 years. Not very good, but he's been on top. So my thought process is he's somebody who can be on top for a very long time, and he can be a heel or a face to go up against Hogan, Flair, Hart, Piper, Punk.
All right, so I'm going to pick Ultimate Warrior.
All right. I had this guy pegged gone a long time ago. But to me, if you're talking about top 5 greatest in-ring wrestlers of all time, Kurt Angle's in that discussion. And you're able to pair him with AJ Styles, Brock Lesnar, and Daniel Bryan, not even counting what he could do with Undertaker and Austin. Yeah, I'm happy with that top 6. So I feel like I'm pretty good at my main event guys. So I want to start getting quality guys who I don't have a problem being kind of in that mid card. And I want, in my opinion, who's the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. Give me Mr. Perfect.
I disagree with Mr. Perfect. I would actually state that Rick Rude was the best IC champion ever.
You don't think Chris Jericho was, or the Honky Tonk Man? Maybe
Honky
the
Tonk
Miz.
Man was not.
The
Honky Tonk
Honk
Man was the greatest IC champion because that's the only thing he ever accomplished.
I'm going to have to pick someone that I think is the most psychological heel ever. And I'm going to have to go with Jake the Snake Roberts.
Ooh.
I think that he would work in this era too.
I absolutely think so.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go also a little crazy here, and I am going to pick a Japanese wrestler, and I'm going to take Misawa. And my thought process behind that is he had a very long career with AJPW, and then again when he created Pro Wrestling Noah. He gave it all in the ring. And one of the things I like to do, especially when I would craft a roster, is you have to have somebody who is good for a specific thing, and you only want to have one of one thing too, I believe. So, for example, I wouldn't want to fill it up with a bunch of Japanese guys because then it's like nobody is special, especially to an American audience. But you have one Japanese guy, that person is special now. And Misawa, I think, is somebody who the story he tells in the ring potentially could translate to an American audience, and especially a 20-year career too.
So with my next 2 picks, I'm going to go with somebody who unfortunately had their career cut short, but an absolute technician in the ring. And I'm going to go with Owen Hart.
I was wondering when Owen might go.
I was really kind of hoping to get Bret Hart to be able to have both of them in there, but that is unfortunate. And then on my next pick, it's going to be the master of the diamond cutter, DDP.
That's a good one. I actually had looked at him and I was like, oh, he's so versatile. Because when he held the U.S. title, it was like, oh, he's like the next big guy, And obviously he's been able to hold the world title. So he's somebody who can easily float in between there, and it's really good. So I definitely like that pick. Taking a look at the Intercontinental title picture, or the U.S. title for me, this might be a little bit of a fanboy pick, but I'm going to go with Chris Jericho.
He was my next pick. Now, Aaron, while Andy's thinking, is Jericho a guy that you plan on floating, or is this a guy who you plan on being in the main event who occasionally drops down?
I would say more floating. I would focus him mostly mid-card, and then he comes up to the main event when needed. But he is a guy that he is so good in the ring that, him against Bret Hart, him against Punk, him against, Reigns. And these are matches that we have seen. Some of them we have seen. So he is a very versatile person. That's one of the reasons I wanted to go with him.
I want to see the promo between Flair, Piper, Punk, and Jericho.
In this case, I'm gonna go with another person who I thought was just a great ring worker, and I think maybe it's a little too early, but I really, really like him. That's Rey Mysterio.
That captures the kids market for sure. You know, like him or Warrior will, and you know, if you get any more cruiserweights, you know, obviously it could be a really good pairing for that.
So my next two are kind of guys I would say, I guess you would argue they're Paul Heyman guys a bit. I look at ECW as something that kind of revolutionized things in the 90s, kind of started the Attitude Era. And if you're looking at guys who are both athletic, who I think in their prime could put on matches with Fantastic, had a very nice look. And when you're talking about extreme matches, they could do ladder matches, table matches, chairs matches you want. I'll take Rob Van Dam. And then my last one is a personal favorite. And this is maybe picking him a little bit too early, but to me, he's a guy that I could build as an absolute monster, especially if I wanted to go against Lesnar, with Lesnar. I'm going to go with Samoa Joe here. I mean, Joe AJ alone would be a fantastic match.
And Andy, how about you?
I have a couple that I want to pick, but I think it's too early to pick them. But I think probably one of my favorite wrestlers that was in WCW, mostly because when his pyro would go off, it didn't matter where you were in the damn arena. It felt like your face was going to burn off. But I'm going to go with the one, the only, the 5-time champion, Booker T.
He is a versatile champion as well, similar I think to Jericho.
He can tag. He had the U.S. title for a while. He also has had the WCW Heavyweight Championship and also the WWE World Heavyweight Champion, if I'm correct. And he's just one of those guys. I think he retired a little too soon, but you know, now you can always look back and like, I wish I could see the Spinaroonie one more time.
Well, and going along that line, Andy, as you mentioned with tag teams, I'm actually going to be the first to take tag team off the board here, and I'm going to go with the Road Warriors or the Legion of Doom. And my thought process behind that, number one, you get two people who they themselves, they weren't main eventers apart, but together as a tag team, that's somebody that you paid to see, and they were very special. So Legion of Doom, they had a very good run in the AWA, the NWA, WCW, WWF. So they are somebody who I believe spanned 20 plus years, very versatile.
Oh, it's a good pick. First tag team. Just want to mark this down. Kind of surprised this guy has not gone off. He had a very good storied career. A little bit of things in the background, but I'm going to take Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Nice.
And
Also a very long career.
Yep. And I'm going to also take another one of my favorite Kevins, Kevin Owens.
I see what you did there.
Now, one of the things that I'm going to have to do then is I have to have a tag team for the Legion of Doom. And so there's no other second best tag team of all time is the Dudley Boys.
You know, that's what I thought you were picking when you took LOD, and that would be a fun feud, those two. Very violent.
And I'm going to go with the guy. It doesn't matter when he's wrestling because you know that he's either a face or a heel, depending on the minute. And I'm going to have to take the one and the only, The Big Show.
So you've got a giant match potential.
Actually, yeah, that's pretty good then.
Yeah, that is.
That's a spectacle. I'm pretty set on what I got. There's a lot of talent left, but I'm going to switch gears now. And I know Aaron went for tag. I'm a big fan of women's wrestling, so I'm going to start that off right now. I'm going to go with, in my opinion, the two of my favorite women wrestlers of all time: Trish Stratus and Charlotte Flair.
Oh, nice one. Not Rockin' Wendy.
She's on the big board. We'll get to her a little bit later.
All right, so we'll just say I'm sexist, so I won't pick any women, or do we have to?
You
don't have to.
Yeah, you may draft however you please. You just can't continually pick main eventers. You have to go outside of that norm.
And I'm doing a tally right now that we can talk about offline about, the main eventers versus, who's actually a mid-card person.
Yeah, I'm also doing the same thing, just to keep track.
I want to pick someone that I really...
So that is the end of the 10th round. I mean, Is that all?
Well, Roger did do an extra pick, so why don't we just finish out with this round?
The 11.
Yeah. So Andy, go ahead and pick yours.
Oh, this is gonna be a tough one. I mean, there's so many guys I like. I also like promos, and I think there's one guy that I met once. I have an autograph from him, and I really got to put him on my my roster, and that is the one that you must quote, known as the Raven.
I really considered him. Raven is a fantastic promo guy.
Because him and Jake the Snake will go at it for a long time.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
Oh,
Even
actually,
Flo versus
yeah.
the DDT.
Because
Wow.
he learned it from him. So
Mm.
they had a
That would
big.
be, yeah,
Him and DDP had a big feud that revolved around that.
So
that would be a
Aaron's
creepy match.
Aaron's gonna pick Jeff Jarrett.
I could, but I'm going to go a different route, and I'm going to pick the Hardy Boys.
So I am going to enter the modern era right now with this next pick in a guy, and actually my next two picks in something that we will be talking definitely at our end of the year show. I'm going with Kenny Omega.
Mm,
I was wondering when he would come off the board.
okay. Well, that's the first 11 rounds of that. I think we're going to go to 20. So maybe in January when we for a Rumble special, or right after that, we will discuss the results of our draft.
That sounds like a plan. We'll go with that. So we'll go. Are we going to go ahead and do the next 9 rounds offline? Right? Is that right?
Yeah, that's the goal.
All right. So I think we'll go ahead and take care of that, and we'll be able to talk about the rest of our rosters and why we picked this guy over this guy, and we can definitely go from there. So. But anyway, so I guess that's going to be all the time we have for this month's show. If you're into the Twitter, you follow the show at AllTheMark86. I want to thank 86 Productions for hosting and editing the podcast, and I want to thank all of our listeners for taking the time to download and listen to the show. And for Aaron Hughes, Doug Hahn, and Roger Cave, I am Andrew Hughes, and until next time, we'll see you in the ring.